Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Energy News Beat podcast. My name's Stuart Turley, President and CEO of the Sandstone Group. It is nutty out there on the desk. Let's take a look. PetroVietnam Gas seals long-term LNG supply for Nhon Trach power plants. Pretty darn cool. You gotta love LNG to power. Let's go to David Blackmon. This came off of the Daily Caller, I believe. Trump could upend every facet of the Obama-Biden climate agenda in one fell swoop. If you just hold a breath for about 5 minutes, it changes again. This one's pretty cool. Saudi Arabia, Russia, Iraq, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Kazakhstan, and Algeria and Oman are all part of the OPEC Plus group, and they reaffirm commitment to market stability on healthier oil market outlook. Buckle up, lower prices coming around the corner. Ukraine strikes a major Russian oil refinery for a second time in 3 days over the weekend. I think we're all kind of tired of that war. Let me just take a second here. What do you think the definition of insanity is? Is it doing the same thing again and again and again and expecting a different result? Well, is the EU insane? The EU unveils an ambitious plan to slash energy bills by 2.5 trillion. Hold your breath. It is all entertainment coming around the corner on this one. Holy smokes, you cannot buy that kind of stupid. Let's start with PetroVietnam. PetroVietnam Gas sells long-term LNG supply deal for the Nhon Trach power plants. I like this from the standpoint that we're seeing more and more LNG to power plants. We're also seeing more and more LNG bunkering facilities. We're also seeing more and more just ships, cargo ships, ships of all kinds being made of LNG. We're also seeing LNG trucking. I'm kind of like it because it's going to be lower emissions for the environment. According to the PV gas statement, 2 units of state-owned PetroVietnam signed the LNG supply contract for Vietnam's first 2 LNG power plants for 25 years. It's pretty cool. When you take a look at that, that means that people can put in production, they can put in tankers. South Korea's Samsung and CT secured a contract from PV Power to build the plants in a consortium with Vietnamese contractor Laima. I hope I pronounced that correctly. In November 21, PV Power broke ground on the Nhon Trach 3 and 4 plants in the southern province of Dong Nai, which are about $1.4 billion. Pretty darn cool. That came from LNGprime.com. Let's go to the next story here. David Blackmon. Trump could upend every facet of the Obama-Biden climate agenda in one fell swoop. This is an amazing story from David Blackmon. The Washington Post reported Wednesday the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin, has privately urged the White House to strike down a scientific ruling underpinning much of the federal government's push to combat climate change, according to 3 people briefed in the matter who spoke on the condition and with anonymity because they were not authorized to publicly comment. Oh my goodness. The legality and continuing of applicability of the administrator's finding, endangerment and cause for contribute for findings for greenhouse gases under Section 202A of the Clean Air Act final rule. The Obama's EPA finding was established in the 2007 5-4 ruling by the Supreme Court in Massachusetts versus the EPA, allowing the agency to regulate greenhouse gases as pollutants in the context of the Clean Air Act. Given that the so-called greenhouse gases are water vapor, methane, and carbon dioxide are all naturally occurring elements, a ruling of classifying them as pollutants as a term intended by authors of the Clean Air Act in 1963 was absurd on its face, but that didn't stop the 5 justices from imposing their political will. We are seeing a resurgence around the world, and the United States is taking the lead on the return to some kind of normalcy and sanity. This was an outstanding article from David Blackmon. Let's roll to OPEC Plus. Saudi Arabia, Russia, Iraq, and the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Kazakhstan, Algeria, and Oman reaffirmed their commitment to the stability of healthier oil market. This was out of the press release from the OPEC Plus website. Taking into account the healthy market and the positive outlook, they reaffirmed their decision in return of the 2.2 million barrels per day of voluntary adjustment starting on 1st of April 2025. This is not an April Fool's joke. They are going to be pumping more oil while remaining adaptable to evolving conditions. Accordingly, this gradual increase may cause or reversed subject to market conditions. And when you take a look at the amount of oil that is being produced as in millions of barrels, there's a lot of numbers in that chart when you take a look at it. Required production levels as per the 38th ONOM before applying the additional voluntary announced on April 23rd, November 23rd. It's pretty cool. So, hey, it's going to be more lower prices, and I think that you're going to see this is again, I think even with all this world turmoil right now, we are poised to see an end to the war and sanctions against Russia. I think sanctions on Iran are still going to be enforced and withheld. So that one, I don't know that they'll be able to do anything with. Let's take a look at Ukraine strikes a major Russian oil refinery for a second time in 3 days, an official says. Long range drones struck Russia's biggest oil refineries for the second time in 3 days, a senior Kyiv official said Monday, as Ukraine tries to slow the Russian army push along the parts of the border on the third anniversary of the war. Russian authorities acknowledged only a brief fire at the Volgograd refinery in the drone attack. The Ukrainian defenses are creaking under a monstrous Russian drive to occupy more land, especially in Ukraine's eastern industrial heartland before the possible start of peace negotiations. So it's going to get tough here. I hope that we can see an end to the war here. The refinery is located 480 kilometers or 300 miles behind the front line, and the plant is even further away. The Estran plant is about 800 kilometers. The Russian military said it destroyed 70 Ukrainian drones over 6 Russian regions during the night. So they kind of retaliated on that. Hey, I want to take just a real quick moment here and say thank you to Steve Reese and his staff over there at Reese Consulting for sponsoring the Energy Newsbeat podcast. Working on some natural gas stories coming up around the corner for tomorrow. We're excited about what Reese Consulting has going on. And if you're in the natural gas space, if you're in Europe and you want LNG, check out Reese Consulting. If you are in Asia market and you want LNG, call. If you want a power plant, call Reese Consulting. So if you want anything to do with natural gas, call Reese Consulting. Hats off to them. I'm looking forward to more podcasts with Steve in Oklahoma City. So let's have some fun. The last story for today, EU unveils ambitious plan to slash energy bills by $2.5 trillion pounds, or euros. When you sit back and take a look, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over. And if you take a look at what insanity is in the European Commission, and that is bad energy policies, shoveling money after green energy, the European Commission has introduced an action plan to save 2.5 trillion euros in energy bills over the next 15 years, addressing the rising energy poverty affecting 47 million people in the EU. This is critical. The plan focuses on bringing short-term relief to consumers. How are they going to do that? They're going to, despite significant growth in the renewable energy, major hurdles such as grid volatility and regulatory delays need to be addressed to ensure successful energy transition. I don't know if anybody needs to tell them that the energy transition will not happen without lots of nuclear, and it just isn't going to happen. 3 years after Russia invaded Ukraine, the European Union is still dealing with the economic fallout resulting of an energy crisis. It has continued to reverberate through the European markets. Blistering high energy prices are drastically impacting consumers throughout the bloc. It's estimated that approximately 47 million people in the EU countries are living in energy poverty, a 57% increase since 2019. This is really, really sad. The action plan outlines steps to bring short term relief, but yet we're driving down energy prices. But it's not giving us any specifics. It's saying we're going to have an action plan. The action plan is not here. So if you can't buy stupid, but you can move to where stupid controls it. Anyway, this is for Haley Zimbera for oilprice.com. It was an outstanding article. Please like, subscribe to our Energy Newsbeat, theenergynewsbeat.substack.com. Go to energynewsbeat.co. We have lots of people there every day watching the podcast. We have about 10 podcasts that are in the queue right now to just start rolling right on out. We've got a lot more coming around the corner. So thank you and have an absolutely fantastic day. Hug your pets, hug your family, and do something awesome.